So the next piece that you wanted to share with us was called Pioneers of the Sky.
Oh, yeah.
And that was presented at Boscombe Down Aviation Museum, which if anyone hasn't been there, it's a fabulous, fabulous asset up in Old Sarum. It's beautiful. I've done projects in there as well. It's just such an amazing space. So can you introduce Pioneers of the Sky?
I was approached by an artist, a musical artist, and he said that he's going to do a performance, something around the area of Pioneers of the Sky, or and he said that he wanted to create some music around it, and he knew that I played the percussion, drums, and he knew that I was interested in making movement, but he said, so could we collaborate? And I thought, oh, this is a great opportunity to explore. Now, the challenge for me at the time was to say, how could I introduce cutting edge movement techniques to a kind of, a general audience, an audience that would be, may not necessarily have experienced. Some people would have done, but not everybody. And so I wanted to explore Buto, which is a Japanese movement form that happened or was developed in Japan post Second World War. And I wanted to take this Buto movement and I wanted to explore it with street art techniques. Now, at the university, we'd already been working with this street arts degree, which we ran for about 5 years. Fantastic degree. I mean, I was really excited and learned a lot, and also taught a lot around the area of mime, street art. So all the stuff that I was talking earlier that I started to develop when I was younger came into fruition because I developed that mime, physical theatre, and ways in which to communicate, using the body to communicate non-verbally. So there's a particular Italian style called commedia dell'arte, and which is a wonderful stock character, very vibrant, and requires a lot of physical commitment to enact the character. But what it does is it creates what Eugenio Barba in his work talks about scenic bios. There's a kind of biological level to a scene where when someone is doing something and they're committed to it, in some cases, it doesn't really matter what they're doing, but what the commitment allows, and the style and the quality allows the audience to go like forward and is engaged. So it engages your performer. So we were playing around with this at the street arts course, creating this kind of transcultural movement form. So working with African dance, well, I was working with African dance, bata, and also hip hop, the kind of body popping, sort of European street theatre, commedia dell'arte, this physical theatre, and Buto. And Buto, which is this, and I was very lucky to go and study with a master of the form, although he said he doesn't teach Buto. He said he teaches something else, but all the Buto artists in Japan went to him, and I had a chance to spend some time with him. His name is Hironobu Oikawa, who passed away, I think 2-3 years ago. Wonderful, wonderful teacher, and real commitment to sensuality and movement. And the good thing about Buto is that it is the dance of the elder. I mean, it is the dance of the elder. You have to draw upon a body of experience. Now, you can draw upon genetic experience, but that takes a lot of work if you're young, But when you're an older person, then the body of experiences taps you into all sorts of deeper memories and things, and it comes out through the movement. Anyway, so I thought with some of my students, it was students that I knew I'd worked with that I could do it. So the problem with Buto work is that people see it, it's a bit like abstract art. You think, oh, you know, well, I could just do that. Just, you know, I'll just cut some things out and put, there it is. Until you realize that actually, no, it's not as simple as just cutting. There is actually a real technique to the ways in which people arrange form, and for it to be successful and for it to engage in an audience. Well, Buto is a similar kind of thing. You look at it, well, you're just sort of feeling intense and moving in a funny way, you know, but of course that's just indulgent movement rather than tapping into your emotions. It takes some time. It takes, you know, it's not something that you can do in a little introduction over 12 weeks in a module where you've got to cover so many other things. So I used to start running classes, extra classes, that wasn't committed to the timetable, but it's just because of part of my own research. And so students would come to that, and it's always a committed student that would do it. You know, there's loads of, you know, wannabes. They'll come in, oh, I can do this, and after 2 weeks they're gone, you know, because it's not easy to engage in that kind of emotion. Anyway, so I managed to get some good students who were doing it, and so we created this piece, which was fantastic because we went to the and I'd never been there before, to the old Sarum, you know, I'd never been to the kind of hangar, and I was like, wow.
It's an amazing historical, it's a building of huge historical importance, but it's kind of one of Salisbury's, you know, biggest kept secrets.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Amazing place.
Yeah, it's really, and there's these guys who are running it, and what I loved about it was like a workshop. There was like there's like things happening, beautiful planes, and we think, "My God!" And you can right up close to it, and then it just. And what blew my mind, and it's a slight sidetrack, but I just got to express this because I remember, it just blew my mind. There was a simulator, Spitfire mechanical simulator, and he said to me, "Go get in." So I got in, and he showed me how to, and my God, it works still. It works still, and what it does is it trains pilots to be able to land literally in a square meter in the dark, in the rain, you know, and I just thought, wow, it was really quite exciting. And then so of course you were able to get into the plane, you see, but also on one part of the hangar there were people who had their own planes which go out. So these are you know, some people's nest eggs, you know, they've got their things that and of course it's worth a lot of money. And so I thought, you know, we've got to have that as a backdrop. Of course I know I was a little bit sort of demanding, but they said, oh yeah, but the thing is, you know, people won't like burst balloons sort of going over their engines. So it might be slightly problematic when it goes out into the air. And so anyway, so I had to do probably my most ambitious risk assessment for that space with my students, because I had balloons, I had a big rig where they had aerials, you know, sort of rope work. And then a full band, percussive band. And we did this whole performance, which again, situated, we were looking at various aviation heroes in Wiltshire. And I created, with the students, we created personas that were like ghostly remnants of these characters coming into the space. And combining Buto elements and street theatre elements blended. So it was kind of a blend of those two things. And I was very excited. And of course, I had this image a long time ago. I'd love to do a performance, an installation where you get these paper aeroplanes. And then there's thousands of them, you know, loads of them. But I couldn't really find a time to think about doing it. I had an idea, might do it in the art centre, but this came about, and I thought it'd be great to have all the audience to throw plane at the appropriate time in the performance. And so I spent some time, and this is probably a confession of my misspent youth, but I learned to do airplanes pretty good. So I was able to do like thousands of these airplanes, and everybody had an airplane. There's a moment, and it's a great moment, and you'll see it in the video, where they all just throw it into the air, and they all, you know, winging their way. And we did it in a way which we wouldn't disturb the planes. But the backdrop of our performance were two fantastic, real live, you know, planes that you see going into the air. In fact, one plane had just arrived when it was out in the air, but while we were busy setting up. And I said that we can't go without this plane coming back. So we had to wait for it to be, you know, come down and to go into the space. It was a great experience, and it was I learned a lot about the aviation history. We wanted to concentrate on a lot of the women. That was a thing. It was a lot of female heroes of aviation, and so that was really exciting. No, it was an exciting performance, and again, I was really glad that Wiltshire Creative gave me. I don't know, was it Wiltshire Creative dinner, or it might have been the Salisbury Festival? I think it was Salisbury Festival.
It was Festival, that project.
Yeah, I was really, you know, because it was a kind of major feature. It was a feature, wasn't it, in one of the first, and we got a really good crowd, and it was really good. The response at the end were like people saying, "God, I've never," because a lot of people who came were fans of the planes, and they probably thought there was going to be some kind of, like, you know, period drama or something. You know, so to see this kind of everybody dressed up in white doing this strange stuff, and then people they did say to me afterwards, "Wow, that's really amazing. I've never seen anything like that before." And of course, they wouldn't do, but again, that's this thing of trying to bring contemporary transcultural ideas to elders and to people who have never really been exposed to such things, but in a way that's not patronizing. I wanted it to be accessible, so it was important that the performance felt good and looked good, if that makes any sense. It was challenging, but I didn't want it to be people are going, well, this is a lot of crap. How does this work, you know?
It needed to be accessible but uncompromised.
Yes, exactly.
And that's the benefit, isn't it, of site-specific work as well, is that the audiences you get sometimes are accidental audiences, and that's often the most fascinating thing to watch. At a performance sometimes is other audience members and how they're experiencing something they might not have signed up for, in the same way that you buy a ticket sometimes for something.